Yeah, he's gonna give it up. He's been here a long time.
So who's gonna take it over?
Now,
Okay, and that's, in addition to like, what your plumbing business, you're gonna be able to do all that?
I've been doing, I send that to wash now.
You have not been doing water district, you haven't been to Bruce.
Yes, I am. You don't know.
Oh, got it.
No, I'm serious.
Okay,
I do
I
all
believe
the,
you.
Can you hear it all?
digging for them, changing the
Talking.
all that. I haven't.
Gotcha.
Taken a couple years.
Yeah.
Or you have.
Barely. Okay. Well, we haven't started
You
yet.
watch the game.
No, it is.
Did your wife tell you she was me?
Pardon?
Did your wife tell you she was me?
Welcome, everyone, to the business meeting in City of Smith
I'll
Center,
tell you about it later.
February 12th. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the January 22nd meeting? Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? And have you had a chance to review the purchase vouchers and our receipts? Any additions or corrections to those? If there is not, I need a motion to approve the January 22nd meeting and to pay the bills and our receipts.
So move.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
Moving seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Dave. We have a guest tonight from K-Camp, David Luke. You may have the floor.
Where do you want me?
Just up front here, it's fine.
Wherever you're comfortable.
Okay.
Or you want to come over here and look at the TV?
In the TV. Let's see. I made 7 copies, so I'm gonna probably keep one for myself and then leave it.
Okay, however you need it.
It's yours and yours.
Yeah, I don't have to have one, so you can,
Oh, it's okay.
I don't have a vote anyway, you know?
Oh, well, I'll leave you my copy. How's that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, thanks for your time this evening. Really appreciate it. I'm David Luke, I'm the administrator of K-Camp. I've been with the organization since 2014, starting my 11th year with them. I've been in the pooling industry since the mid-90s, so almost 30 years. That's fast. Feel old. Remember when I used to look at the guys that were in it 30 years, I go, wow, that's so far away. So yeah, I started with the state of South Dakota, and we had a pool, it's called the Public Entity Pool for Liability. It was a liability pool that covered all the state operations. And that was my first foray into pooling, and then I did consulting for about 10 years to different pools and public entities around the country, and then ran a city pool before coming to K-Camp. So love what I do. Our staff loves what they do. All we do all day is work with our cities and counties and help them with their problems, and we really enjoy it. So it's kind of vanilla, but we just get a kick out of it. So so just to kind of give you an overview of pooling and then K-Camp's operations is kind of what my objective was here, but feel free to stop me anytime if you have questions. Pools are, take different forms in different states. In Kansas, they're formed as interlocal agencies. So just like a group of public entities can come together to run a recycling operation, right, as an interlocal. They formed K-Camp as an interlocal. And it started back in 1991. January 1, 91 was our inception date. And what gave rise to it was, looking at slide 4 there, you'll see the Time magazine cover. I'll come back to these first few. But that was an actual cover of Time magazine in 1986. And what was happening starting in the early 80s was, the commercial insurance market just got very intimidated by public entity risks, and public entities were starting to see like 300% increases, non-renewals, those sorts of things. And it came to Kansas. It definitely was a reality for our members. And so mostly commissioners came together through the association, through Kansas Association of Counties, and said, we got to do something. And they were looking at what other states were doing, and so they got this legislation passed to basically say, let's self-insure our risks as a group. And so you'll see on that first slide, we say we're not insurance, and that's correct. We're group self-insurance. And we're not embarrassed to say that. We're proud of it. It's a great way to finance your risks. I'll explain why in a little bit, but we are regulated in Kansas by the insurance department. I used to work in the California environment, and they actually self-regulate through accreditation, believe it or not, of all states, you'd think. But Kansas, through the insurance department, we are regulated. We report our financials to them every quarter, and then we give them an annual submission. And they have the freedom to audit us at any time. So the mission is to deliver, the highest quality of coverage and risk management services, really tailored to our members' needs. And I would say there's probably 2 or 3 hallmarks of pooling, but the 2 biggest ones are rate stability. We didn't increase rates for 15 years, from 2007 to 2017. There's 2005 to 2019. So it was a 15-year period in there where we never raised our rates. The only reason the premium for what we call our member contribution would have gone up was because the members' payroll went up, the things we rate on increased. So payroll increased, the budget increased, or the property values. We've had to increase rates in the last few years because, for a couple of reasons I'll get into. But if you look at our rates over time, they're very stable. And I think that's what our members like probably the most. The second thing is the services that we provide. And I just met with a county that got non-renewed by the commercial carrier, and they want us to bid next year. And we spent 2 hours together going through this exact PowerPoint. So I won't take 2 hours, but a lot of it was on the services because the members just really love those. And visiting with one county today, we have an attorney assist program. They've had all kinds of employment situations, somebody claiming they need a reasonable accommodation for this, or actually they gave me 2 ADA examples. And you have to engage in an interactive process, and you have to document everything, and you have to determine, is that do we have to make an accommodation? Is that reasonable? It's a process. And we have an attorney that's been assisting them all along through our attorney assist program. That's included in your annual contribution. It's not an extra cost. And they said, I have that person on speed dial. So it's those kinds of services that the members just really love. With pooling, you're sharing risk with like entities. You know who you're in the pool with. With insurance, you're always sharing risk. You just don't know with who, right? And with the pool, it's all transparent. You'll know who the members are, and they're members that have risks just like yours. Through the elected board of trustees, you have representation. So the board, we as the professional staff will make recommendations to coverage, usually to tailor it more towards our municipalities. But the board approves those coverage changes every year. You actually have an appeals process in claims. It's only been used once in our, I think, 35-year history, but it was a kind of a open and shut, easy resolution. But you don't have that obviously with an insurance company. They'll tell you if your claim's paid or not, right? If you don't like the way the adjuster handled it, you can appeal that to me. If you're not happy with my decision, you can go to the board. So there's buy-in, right, into this program. And then there's benefits of group purchase because of our size. We have 78 counties, 10 cities. We're bidding 3 more, actually 4 more this fall, for 4/1. With that size, we can negotiate a lot of services at a discount for you. So that's another advantage. And then as we build equity over time. We have 22 million in surplus. We leverage that for the benefit of the members, and I'll talk about that. So pooling is really, there's a lot of, the commercial agents, we use a lot of scare tactics with pools. They'll say, well, it's really risky to be in a pool. 80% of public entities around the country are in a pool. It's the norm now for public entities. You say 1 out of 100, well, Johnson County, Sedgwick County, right, Wyandotte County, they can self-insure their own risk. They don't need to group with somebody to do that. But our smaller counties, it would be a lot, right, if you had to take on $1 million risk. So better to pool and share that deductible with others, right? And so that's why 80%. Our costs are consistently lower. I've been doing this, like I said, since 2014 in Kansas, and it's amazing. We've added 18 counties in that time. Our first 10 cities, we have never been priced higher than the commercial market. And that's with higher limits, lower deductibles, and all the services that you don't get from the agent. And I will say that's not necessarily true on a national basis. I've been in other states where typically the narrative is, well, the pool's a little bit more, it's about 3% more, but you get all these services and there's a value to that. But with K-Camp, it's just not the case. We're consistently below what the commercial market's charging, again, with more protection for our members. So, and I would say in this hard market, now that things are, getting more difficult, coverage terms are getting more restricted, pricing's going up, the delta between us and them is even greater. We kind of wondered what would happen when the market did harden, because it always does. But we've actually become, we see, for example, one county we just added, we were $120,000 less. So it's pretty significant in some cases. We began with 37 counties, as I said. We're up to 78 today. I'm on slide 7. So, the coverage is very broad, very prudent limits. I'll talk about those. If you turn to 8, you can see our county members. Smith County joined, I'm not sure what years. Sharon Walters retired that year. It was probably like 18.
It's been like 5 years.
5 years now.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe this is the
This is
fifth,
an
maybe
election year, so she retired 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Okay, yeah. So
I'm the county attorney too, so that's why. I know.
you remember, yeah. So Sharon brought us in, well, she was, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
She was still the clerk when we came in, so probably 18 or 19.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so you can see all the shaded counties there on the map are K-Camp members. And we just continue to grow. You see the membership growth on slide 9. I get asked a lot, well, what's the retention? How many stay? And this is wild. So I think there's probably 3 counties that came in and out of the pool in these 10 years that I've been with the pool. Out of 78, and we've added 18, and we have 78. So you think about that, and I asked our underwriter, Bob Taylor, he worked in the commercial market for years, and I said, what was your retention on the commercial side? What would they target? He said, if we could keep 80% of our business each year, we were happy. So that meant 20% a year they're turning over. No, right? We don't have the staff to do all that bidding. But what happens is the members get in and they realize, wow, this is a lot less money. We're getting more protection. We have to serve it, and then they just stay. Not to say they won't bid every few years or once in a great while, but there really is member loyalty there. And so you can see just the steady and consistent growth. I might as well hit on this now. So I have our city members there on the next slide. So again, we really started intentionally adding cities probably around 2017. So it's been more recent. And so those are listed there, along with the counties that they're in. We have our governance structure there. I actually listed our board members, three county commissioners, 3 clerks, and a sheriff currently sit on the board. City officials, it is only electeds. So some municipalities will say, well, can our staff serve? Not the way the bylaws are drafted. So the way K-Camp was set up, it's elected officials that serve. And then the staff there on page 13, we are located in Topeka. We have, myself, I have an assistant, a deputy, and then we have an underwriting manager, a risk manager. We have a retired sheriff, Ellis County. Ed Harbin serves as our law enforcement specialist. He's a resource for our member law enforcement operations. And then we have 3 claims adjusters. So we have somebody for property, somebody for liability, and somebody for auto. And so this is all they do all day is handling your type of claims, heavy equipment, autos, law enforcement claims, employment claims. That's all they do. And you'll have their direct lines, you'll have their cell numbers. So easy access to our claims folks when you need them. And they are excellent. Okay, I'm going to get into the coverages, but before I do, I was talking about how we're less money. There's probably several reasons for that. One is we don't use agents, we write direct. So we work directly with you. So like I just talked with Ashley over at the courthouse, I stopped in before I came over here. We talk to her regularly. We talk to Joelle. We talk with the road and bridge staff. And that's just how we're used to operating. And so, we're your resource. And if we don't have the answer, we plug you in with the right resource. And so we don't pay commissions, in other words. So that cost, you can just take that right out. And that can be anywhere from 6 to 15% probably of your premiums. So you're saving that right off the top. Unlike an insurance company, we are very, I think, streamlined. We don't have a lot of, we have one building, we have a limited number of staff, and so we're pretty low cost operation. So that's a difference. Another difference is we're not publicly traded, so we don't have shareholders we're trying to get a dividend to. If you're at BMC or Travelers, they got shareholders, right? So they're trying to not just make money, right? Not just pay your losses, pay their staff, pay for their reinsurance, but then they want to also, make a profit and then pay some of that back in dividends to their shareholders. Well, we don't have that. Anything left over after we pay our pool costs, our reinsurance, and our admin, goes to surplus. And then we look at ways, and I'll talk about that, how the board looks at that annually to determine if there's money that they can get back to the members from that surplus. Okay, let's talk about the coverage. On the liability side, our coverage is very designed for Kansas municipalities. So, for example, we have the Kansas Tort Claims Act, right, which says $500,000 per occurrence is your cap. So if there's an auto accident involving a county employee, they hit a minivan with 5 people in it, it's not $500,000 per person, it's $500,000 for that whole event available to those claimants in that minivan. Right? So that's a really good protection. There's a lot of states that are envious of that. That's the coverage we provide, $500,000. Problem is you're not limited to that, right? Because you could have federal employment claims, you could have 1983 federal civil rights claims against your police department. You could have an out-of-state auto accident. So now your exposure is, whatever a jury gives them. And so what we do is we say, well, it's $500,000, except if the claim is not governed by the KTCA, then it's $3 million. So it's a very healthy limit. I mean, is it enough? No. I mean, there could be claims for who knows, right? But again, in bidding this over the last 10 years, I've never seen the commercial market even offering 3. They're usually offering, I've seen 500,000. I've seen $1 million. I've seen $1 million with an umbrella of $1 million. It's probably the highest, so $2 million. And we're at 3. And then we provide $500,000 of additional defense costs outside that limit. And that's big because if you have like an employment claim where typically it's going to be a law enforcement claim, that gets litigated sometimes over years. And you can eat up that limit, right, just in your defense costs. And then when it comes time to pay the claim, we only have $1 million left to pay that claimant. So the rest is going to have to come out of the city's pocket, right? And so $3 million with the additional $500,000 defense costs. There's one change I need to make to this. I apologize. I didn't catch this today. I said no aggregate limits on the general liability, auto, and law enforcement. It's true for the general and auto. What's happening right now is the reinsurance market is putting in coverage restrictions, and one of them is they want an aggregate limit on our law enforcement. What an aggregate limit is that's just the most the insurer will pay in a year. So if you have an annual aggregate, for example, on your law enforcement, let's say it's $1 million per occurrence, $1 million aggregate, that means they're just going to pay once. They're going to pay $1 million claim in a year, and if you have another one, you're on your own. Ours is twice, so you actually have $6 million as an aggregate on the law enforcement, and then there's no aggregate for GL or auto. We give crisis response coverage. I'm sorry, I brought my back to this.
Oh, it's fine.
Is it okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Where that camera is. So the crisis response coverage is included in all our lines of coverage. And, that's actually something we've used a decent amount. It's where you might have a cyber breach that shuts down city operations for 2 weeks, and the press wants to know why. You might have a shooting. You get the national press calling. And we can put you in touch with a media consultant that can work with you, so you're making sure you're doing the right kind of PR, communicating what needs to be communicated. And then we have sublimited coverage for injunctive relief. So, most claims are monetary claims. So, it's a claim for money. But sometimes they're just claims that the city do something. And you still have to pay a lawyer, right, to defend you in that. So we provide up to $25,000 of defense costs for those. Usually commercial carriers aren't going to cover that at all. Okay, so that's the liability. The property, all risk property coverage just means we don't try to name all the perils that you could experience to your buildings, your contents, your property in the open. We just say it's covered unless we've excluded it. So it's a very broad way to provide coverage. You get replacement costs. Like, kind, and quality on your buildings and contents. You get depreciated costs on your vehicles and heavy equipment, and that's probably what you have now, is my guess. One of the cool things about the KCAMP program, as you're adding vehicles or equipment or even buildings during the year, no charge, and we don't audit you at the end of the year. So it saves the clerks a lot of time having to go, okay, I added that vehicle on June 10th, and now I got to figure out how much I owe. No. You add it when you add it, it's covered, and we'll catch it next year. And so that really benefits you because you're usually dropping off older stuff that costs less, and you're adding newer stuff that costs more. And so you save on coverage. On contribution. And that's up to $2.5 million. So we've had members, acquire $1 million building, no charge, till the next year. And then we cover the catastrophic flood, terrorism, and earthquake. If you have property in a flood zone, it'd be $1 million of coverage. If it's not in a flood zone, it's $10 million on flood. And I believe earthquake's also 10. And then we provide cyber coverage as well. So your most common scenario is going to be, a breach. Somebody gets into your system, usually like through a phishing email or something like that. And now they have access to your data. And under Kansas law, you're required, you're sort of held to a negligence standard. So the fact that you let that person in, you now have to send notifications to every impacted party, even though maybe nothing's been done with their data, you still have to notify them. You have to offer to set up credit monitoring. Then you have to set up credit monitoring if that's what they want. We handle all of that. It's up to $1 million of coverage. Sometimes you'll get a extortion demand. There has to be negotiation with that. Again, that's all. The only thing we ask is report it immediately. It doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m, report it so we can get on it and mitigate that loss as best we can. Okay, the next 2 slides show, this is basically what I want to show you to show you what the pool is. So again, sometimes folks will say, well, pools are real risky. Here's the gray down here is the member deductibles. The blue bar, that dark blue bar that goes across, that's the pool. So you're only sharing risk with other counties up to $350,000 each occurrence. The rest, and this is true for most insurers, they'll be transferring risk to reinsurers above some layer. You just don't know what it is because they don't have to tell you. But for us, we're member owned, so we share it. So we transfer that risk above the 350 up to whatever the limits are. Your limit is generally going to be all of your values combined. So that's your buildings, and we don't break things out. So you probably have an inland marine policy for your heavy equipment. You have an auto policy for your vehicles. You have a property policy your building's got. Ours is just one. So when I say your limit is all your values, it's vehicles, heavy equipment, contents, buildings, property in the open, all of that combined is your limit of protection. So it's a pretty healthy limit. And we transfer that above 350 to the reinsurers. On the liability, we retain the first 500,000. So turning that page again, I kept that in blue. So you can see the blue line is the pool layer. And then up to the 3 million. And then we provide crime coverage, the next slide, and we just retain the first 150 of that layer. And that's what, again, the risk you're sharing with your fellow members, and then we're transferring that risk up to $1 million. Crime coverage, I mean, typically I see that pretty lowballed on limit. Those are rare losses, but when they happen, they're large. And so I've seen $25,000 limits when I go to bid a county or a city. I've seen 50, I've seen 100, I've seen 150. It's not adequate. You really want, and it's not expensive coverage. You really want at least $1 million of coverage because it can get actually into the millions. And it's typically like longtime trusted employee taking little bits of money under the radar of internal controls, and pretty soon it's, after 10, 20 years, it's huge. And nobody ever thinks it's going to happen. Right? We know them. They would never do that. Okay, so the next slide. So what I wanted to share with you is, how do you know how much risk you're taking? Well, this next slide, I'm not going to go into it in detail, but if you look at this is slide 20. And if you look at the ratios there, these are some of the ratios our board looks at every year to evaluate the health of the pool. And if you see that net assets or surplus to self-insured retention, so what regulators would do is they'll look at it and say, well, we'd like to see if you had 10 losses in a year that blew through that 500,000, we'll take your largest retention, the $500,000 liability pool layer. We want 10 losses funded with your surplus. So 500,000 times 10, 5 million is what we should have to meet regulator expectations. We're at 22 million. You take the property, 350,000. 10 times, we should have 3.5 million. We're at 22 million. For us, we probably think that the most likely scenario would be like, convective storm, tornadoes hitting multiple counties, and we've had it. That's why we've had some loss years, right, where we weren't profitable. And our reinsurance, if it's within a 72-hour period, doesn't matter if it's going to Johnson City tomorrow night and Mountain City on the east. If they're within 72 hours, they treat it as one occurrence. So we just pay $350,000, and that happens often. But let's say it's not, and you have 10 of those. You have to have 10 tornadoes, right? Wipes out 10 counties or 10 cities. We pay 350 times 10 if they're not within a 72-hour period. So the pool's exposed to 3.5 million. We have 22 million. So you can see it's a very, our actuary who does he's doing our actuary this year, and he also does our capital. We stress test our balance sheet every year to figure out how much surplus we need. He tells us every year, you would be the envy of every pool I work for, because most pools don't have this 43-to-1 ratio. So I guess what I'm saying is, the Kansas elected officials that set this up were brilliant. I mean, this has worked. You guys have, it's a very creative solution to a problem that was very serious. And what's interesting is we're back, right? We're in the same market now, I would say, or at least comparable market to what we were in 1991. Because I've gone out to, I think, 2 or 3 counties now where the local agent, who's been their agent for years, didn't even show up with a bid. That's how bad it is, right? They're basically non-renewing. Barton County was in the news, where Great Bend is, dropped by their carrier. EMC just dropped. They had to go place insurance with like a bunch of different carriers for each of their individual lines, which is never a great plan. Their first quote came back at $1 million, and that was renewing a $300,000 premium. They ended up around 500 and some, I think, but with multiple carriers. So we are kind of back in that market that led to the creation of these pools. And our members, they saw their largest increase ever with a 25% increase. That's the largest we've ever done. We're sick about it, right? But let me give you another example of the advantage of pooling. So do you all know what your property deductible is, like for wind hail?
5,000 currently, and we just got a letter last week, it's going up to $50,000.
50,000. So that's what's happening, right? And for some, it's worse. For some, they'll say, we want 1% of your value. So for City Hall, I didn't look at your schedule before I came, but let's
I
say,
think we're at 1.3 million, right?
Okay.
Somewhere in that area.
okay, so you're gonna pay, $10,000 deductible just for City Hall. And then what's your next building that's close by? 1% on that. What's your next building? 1% on that. A 1% per location deductible is what a lot of these carriers are doing now. Butler County, who joined us, was already at a 1%. They were being told to go to a 3% per location. So
Like not having insurance at all.
exactly. Now you're just self-insuring, right? Which is, so do it, self-insure with the pool, right? Because here's what we did. Our reinsurers told us the same thing. They said, you need to do 1% per location to your members. And so I've been doing this a long time, and my attitude is, don't tell us how to write coverage, right? We're pooling our own risk. We'll decide what our members will decide kind of what we're going to do. And so what we proposed to the board and the board approved is, okay, reinsurer, you get a 1% per location deductible funded by the pool. The members are going to get a 10,000. So they're going to get a 10,000, and it's a per occurrence. So if you get 5 buildings hit, it's a $10,000 building deductible. And K-Camp and all its members will pay the difference. And why can we do that? Why does that make sense? Because if you think about it, how many are going to get hit with that convective storm loss next year? We have 120 members. 2, right? So the ones that don't, they're basically going to fund the difference for you. Next year, it'll be another 2 entities, and you'll fund the difference for them, right? And that's pooling. And that's why it works so well, because we have the creativity, we have the power, because we're retaining risk, to decide how we're going to structure our program. And we can create that buffer for our members in markets like this. So that's what we've done. And we had our actuary project for the pool. Well, what's that going to cost to fund those losses between 10,000 per occurrence and 1% per location? They said, this much, and we built that into the contribution, which is one of the reasons that we had such a big increase, because we have to fund that difference. But we're still less money, and we've protected our members from self-insuring to $50,000 or more. So it's a great concept. Services, I mentioned Attorney Assist. We have on our website, we have a thing called eRisk Hub. It gives you access to cyber policies you might need to put in place if you're issuing mobile devices to employees, for example, self-assessment tools. It has training resources. We have a model employee handbook that's written for public entities in Kansas. So your council can work with that, or as a starting point, or, so you're not inventing something out of whole cloth. We have a thing called, it's called Think HR on here. It's now called Mineral, but it gives you access to HR consultants from 8 to 5 every day. And you can ask them anything. It doesn't have to be something that's even covered. Like it could be a wage and hour question. And they also have, through our website, scores of employment trainings for your staff. We have K-Camp Online University. I put the catalog in here for you. It's the thickest document on the left side of your folder. And it gives a pretty comprehensive list of the courses. So public works courses, law enforcement courses, employment law courses. And all your employees can have access to that. They finish a training, they print out a certificate of completion, you can drop it in their personnel file as evidence that you've trained them. We do have, LLRMI, which is a law enforcement model policy and procedure program. I've been telling our members now for a couple of years, This is more important than ever because, you know, in the old days, if let's say there was a shooting, you could get the chief or the sheriff out of the case pretty early on because they weren't there usually. You know, it's usually whatever officer responded to the scene at that time. Now, your department's only 3, so it could have been the chief. But if it's not, we could have had him removed from the case. Not anymore. 10th Circuit got rid of what's called 11th Amendment immunity. And now the question becomes, well, did the chief have policies on this? Did he train his staff on the policies? And if not, there's exposure. And so we partnered with LLRMI, Legal and Liability Risk Management Institute. They've been doing this since the 80s. When I got in the field, they were doing it. Same people, excellent folks. And it's an electronic delivery system, so you load it in and you can email out the policies and have your employees sign off, have electronic verification. K-Camp foots the bill for that. If you were to go purchase something like that, it would be, if it's them or Lexipol or a comparable product, it's about $20,000 for implementation. It's about $5,000 a year on average. So you'd be getting that at the cost. The only cost you would pay is the cost to put it on the platform, and that's $12 per officer per year. So that's the group purchase stuff I was talking about earlier. Road Scholar tuition reimbursement. If you've got public works employees, you want to send a Road Scholar, which is through LTAP, we reimburse for that. We have a risk avoidance grant. We give you $2,000 back each year for things that will help you reduce property and liability risk. So maybe a grow guards on vehicles costs a lot less when the deer hits a grow guard versus when it hits a vehicle. So we're happy to help pay for that grow guard. Backing up signs, slip resistant coating on stairs, things like that. And every year you just fill out a short 1-page app, send it in, and we cut you the check. We do have risk management awards. If your contribution is over 50,000, and I don't know yet because we haven't underwritten this yet, you're eligible to get 1 to 6% of your contribution back. And we always say we sort of pay the member twice because we're paying for the services. And then if you're using them and you document that you are, you can get this incentive money back as well. So if I just cover 2 more quick ones. There's 2 flyers in there. One is from Stanfield Roofing. This is a firm that will come out and inspect your roofs. They will they'll actually do light maintenance on the roof. It's like cleaning up leaves and debris from gutters and drains. At no additional cost. If there's significant repairs that need to be done, they'll recommend that. They'll provide you a written report with photos of the roof, documenting the maintenance issue and recommending the repair, and then you can use them or somebody local, anybody you want to make those repairs. Stanfield's out of El Dorado. We negotiated with them a 40% discount on that service. So I'm really happy. I've been getting lots of calls and emails from our members who are implementing this. And why are we doing it? Because obviously, if the roof isn't properly maintained and that hailstorm comes, we're going to pay as a pool. And I can't even tell you how many times our adjuster gets up with the roof and he says, if they had just maintained this roof had another 20 years and this hail wouldn't have penetrated and we wouldn't have water leaks. So doing a little bit of a spend on the front end can really extend the life of that roof. And so we're encouraging that. And the other one is Know Before, which is, I don't know if you're all using that now, but that is I talked about cyber. These attacks they're not only not going away, they're getting a lot more frequent, right? It's something like 80% or 90%, somewhere between 80 and 90% of breaches come through that phishing email that the employee clicks on and shouldn't have. So 80 to 90%. And Know Before has done some testing. What they figured out is when you implement that, every employee gets trained, and you can do it monthly or quarterly. But you implement that training, and they have to, if they click on something, they now have a 5-minute video they get to watch. So they test them, and then they'll just do a standalone training. We've implemented it at K-Camp, so I've had to do these. They're very good videos, very quick, interesting. You learn a lot, and once that training is implemented, the number of breaches goes from that 80% down to like 6%. So they know that if we train our employees, tell them, kind of show them what to look for, they're not going to click. And so again, we negotiated a group discount on that. Some of our 25%, and some of our members already had it. So we don't just assume they're giving us 25%. We called our members, found 2 or 3 that had it, found out what their pricing was, and the price that they gave us was exactly 25%. So you will get a discount if you implement that program. Most of these services I talked about though are included in your contribution. So it's like KnowBe4 and LLRMI that have just those fractional costs. I think the last thing I was going to mention is we will do appraisals on your property. I don't know if you've ever been appraised, but we have a commercial appraiser that does all our members every 4 years. They'll do every location. And one of the reasons we do that is I kind of hinted that, the restricted coverage terms and the pricing is really coming from the reinsurance side. Our pool rates still aren't going up. It's the reinsurance pricing that's going up. We've got to pay. They are wanting to see that they're not trusting the data. So they had losses in Texas and Tennessee and Kentucky. Saw those tornadoes. Hopefully, Tornado Alley's moving that way, but I wish that on them. It's got to hit somebody. But when it hit there, in some of those states, the reinsurers went to pay the claims and they went, wait a second, you told us it was a $5 million building. We're paying $20 million to rebuild it. What's wrong with your data? And so we're trying to do our part to show the reinsurance market, hey, we appraise every 4 years, and then we're applying trend factors and off years. And we think that's going to help us with our reinsurance pricing. So we would probably, if you joined us for one, we'd probably appraise you this year and then have the new values put in place for this year. Any questions?
When does our policies with EMC come due?
April 1. When it was key to fit into the schedule.
Yeah.
Appreciate this.
Oh, not at all. This is great. We love this. We don't, I don't know what kind of underwriting you're having to go through, but we don't tell you how to run your city. So, for example, I know travelers, for example, will often say, we want everybody's driver's license. We don't want your driver's license. If we want, we recommend you have a policy for certain positions that maybe you do a DMV poll on certain positions that are driving regularly. And then you have a policy that says what's acceptable and what's not. And we'll give you a model policy for that, and then you can work that out with your council and decide what you want to do. But we're not going to tell you have to do it, how you have to do it, and give us all the driver's license. It's just way too much underwriting. So
I think we have 2. We had a police officer who we had to terminate because of insurance. They wouldn't cover him because of a speeding ticket from like years ago. And then Jamie just told me today, there's another like part-time sheriff's deputy who works for the city, who the city won't cover him because he had 2 deer accidents. Like, they're deer accidents. It's not
And one.
your
one
fault
of
the
the
deer runs
accidents
out
was
towards you.
several years ago. The other one was recent, but the first year
We
accident was several
have
years
a
ago.
one-man police department right now anyway, so it's like really hard when you can't keep someone because of
Stupid.
insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. Suppose they would just exclude deer hits, right?
Right? Like,
Yeah.
And on-
they would just
on
move
his
those deer
personal time,
crossings
not
to
on
a
his
better
work.
place.
Yeah. Well, another example I've heard from people that have left the commercial market is they'll say, an officer, maybe this doesn't happen in town so much, but they use one of those pit maneuvers to stop a vehicle. And the commercial carriers say, well, we're not repairing your vehicle. It was an intentional act. It's like, it's law enforcement. Like, I hope it's an intentional act, right? But that's the example, right? Like, this is all we do. We know who we work with. We know what kind of operations they have. And it doesn't surprise us. So I think you'll be a lot happier. And again, the staff can call us anytime they have, we look at contracts, all kinds of things. We'll research statutes.
Is there any limitations on like age limits on driving city operation?
I mean, you have to comply with labor laws. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Right?
Can't be 13.
You can't be 13.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's killed us on summer help is you can't get insurance.
they put age restrictions on the,
Mhm.
Must be 25 or older to
so we-
operate in this.
So all the high school help who used to, mow in the summer,
We
they
used
can't
to
hire
have 5,
anymore.
6 kids every summer, can't get them.
and you're within the labor law.
Yeah.
No, that's ridiculous.
The attorney
It is
assist
ridiculous,
program
but
is super
we're-
handy.
We're just
I-
held hostage.
Use that all the time with the county.
So you'll be hearing from us
Okay,
or taking
Attorney
whatever
assist,
information you
It's
can.
that page right there.
yeah, well, we already did the questionnaire. I think we did the loss runs.
I sent him what I had access to,
Okay, oh, online,
which is a bit limited.
okay.
So I have to beg, borrow, and steal. I have not gotten a return call from EMC.
That's like the push of the button for them, so, okay. Loss run, and then the schedules, did you already send those?
We don't have a set, like, replacement schedule.
Oh, just like your buildings with, so you should have like a list of all your buildings with the content values.
Correct, yes, I
Okay.
did send that,
Okay, and then a list of your vehicles
yes,
and a list of heavy equipment.
yes. Including bins and value and the cost when we purchased.
Perfect, that's all we need. So yeah, this won't be difficult.
Council, comments, Brady? Tracy?
Well, I
Dave?
have a question actually, because part of the reason that I was like, oh, we should, what?
Go- Tabitha's got the floor. Sorry, Dave.
Sorry, Dave. I was just wondering, okay, so, I am a city employee.
Yes.
I am appointed, but I'm paid a salary. Like, I don't bill them. I'm not a contractor. Am I covered as a city employee?
So yes, I mean, attorneys are a little tricky. You are, but to what does that coverage apply, right? So one is, I always tell attorneys they should probably keep their professional liability insurance,
see,
right?
that's
For
the-
things you do outside the city.
I'm the county attorney, so I'm
That's all
covered.
you're doing?
Yes.
Okay, yes, you're covered. I mean, we just
I'm
had
a
we just had a
government-
huge law enforcement
Yeah.
case where it was alleged the county attorney engaged in misconduct in the investigation, right?
Shocker.
Covered. Right, yeah, exactly. So covered. But if you're doing, are you a dual role, kind of city council and council with an S? Are you sort of their general counsel as well as the
I'm not a council member. I'm a city attorney. Like,
city attorney?
yeah.
Okay,
So, and then I'm also the county attorney. I'm elected
Yep.
at the county level and I'm appointed here. So it's like two separate jobs.
So, yep.
right?
so your county,
Um,
sorry, I was going off on your county attorney role.
No,
as prosecutor.
that's totally
Yeah,
fine.
so that's
Yeah.
covered
So like
there.
with K-Camp on the county side, when we have a claim about me, right, or law enforcement or whatever,
Yeah,
and I
you know,
call,
you-
like, Reed's like, yeah, we got it.
Right.
whatever. But when I call about EMC, there was just an issue with our agent where she said she thought the council said they didn't want to cover me, and the council's like, that never happened, and it was,
Here's where I just throw out some red flags, is all liability coverage will have what's called, we don't call it this because we don't use this terminology, but an insured versus insured exclusion. So if the council sued you, right, and said, well, you
Yes.
misrepresented,
indeed,
we can't cover that because
Got
that's
it.
covered party against covered party. Now we cover employment actions, right?
yes.
So if as an employee you said, well, they're harassing me every meeting, I'm probably gonna,
I'm taking notes.
Should have given her any ideas.
Taking notes. We're
Um,
good.
if you brought that employment action, that's the exception to the insured versus insured. But when you're providing advice to them, and then they say, well, you cost us money because you give us bad advice, and they're very clear, my guess is that's probably not going to be covered.
I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where I would say keep your own insurance just in case, but what
Right.
else?
Yeah, not worried about that.
That's the main exception I could think of, yeah. But if a third party, so if a member of the public sued the city council and the city attorney because of your role in it, yes, you're covered. Yeah, because it's a third party action.
Dave, what's your comments about this?
Did that answer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have anything other than I think we certainly need to get more information, get checked into it.
Chris?
Two questions.
Yeah.
Is there any, and maybe Jill knows, is there any lines of coverage that you don't offer that we would need? Like I didn't see fire.
We have the FIS is still, at this point, I think the viable route for our fire department is,
We will cover that.
you can cover that as well.
So I showed you the lines of coverage, but that applies to all your city operations. So we would cover fire. Yeah.
And then, I'm not trying to be critical, but, so you mentioned you've been offering or proactively going after city or municipalities since 2017, but I only see 6 or 12, 10 cities. And so, to me, that's a question. Why is that number so low?
Because it was a county pool. I mean, so a lot of these pools, well, all the pools, tended to form out of their association. So League of Kansas Municipalities and the city officials never formed a property liability pool. They formed a work comp one, but they didn't form they formed what KMIT, I think it probably came out of that, but they didn't form a property liability pool. So, but the counties did, and then we just kept trucking along for 20 years. And when I came in, I asked the question, well, why not cities? And asked the board, would you not be interested in including cities? And they're like, yeah, I mean, they're very similar risk. So we went through kind of a 2-year process because we wanted to make sure our coverage was covering city unique exposures that might be different from counties. A lot of cities have golf courses where counties don't, for example. So we actually, believe it or not, tailored it for that. Some cities have power plants. We don't cover the equipment breakdown on the generators because you can buy a policy for that, but we will cover the fire and other perils to that power plant. So we had to go through kind of that process of valuing what are the unique city risks, what are the coverages they already have available, and what are they needing, and can we meet that need, and then how do we price it? And then we had to look at our formation documents and say, do we want, feel like cities should be able to serve on our board if they're going to be members, right? So we had to modify for that. So it was about a 2-year process to go through all of that. And then we started marketing. So, and we don't aggressively market. So I'm not going to League Against Municipalities every year. Honestly, I'll just tell you, cities are calling us a lot. So we've added 2 a year, probably each of the last 3 years. We're bidding La Crosse, Johnson City, Smith Center, and there's one other I'm forgetting. So 4 cities this year. And we're fine with that kind of growth. Like, we don't feel like we need to add 20 at a time. And part of that is our staff size. We don't want to add 10 staff and then have to start laying people off if we grew too fast. So we're fine with sort of doing this by attrition. Going back to that bar graph, it's just like this, slow and steady.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
all I have. Don?
I just kind of in the same vein. On the city members, and I was kind of curious about that too. With the cities listed in your membership, I believe we would be the biggest entity on that list, Smith Center.
In
And-
terms of population,
Yes.
expenses.
Population. I'm just kind of curious why maybe over that period of time, maybe why some larger towns, they self-insure or?
Oh, great question. Okay, thank you. So one of the determinations the board made was what was going to be our target market. So we're not just going to write anybody and everybody. So the board said, we'd really like to look at cities that are within our existing counties, that are preferably the county seat, because they're not 200 population, they're closer to 1,000. Which means, townships will call. And the first question I ask them is, do you have a grader? And they're like, yeah, I got a grader. I'm like, okay. So you have a $150,000 grader. What are you paying for your insurance? Well, $10,000. You're great. Like, keep going. Because you roll that grader, it's gonna take me 15 years to pay it back, right? Like, that's not good business. So it doesn't make sense for the pool to like take on really tiny risk. But we have cities that are 600 population. But we don't also want large cities. So the board doesn't want anybody over 10,000. It's kind of
What?
a couple of reasons. They have, so for example, like Junction City has, I don't know that they've come to us, but they've let us know that they're bidding. It's not interested. I mean, the claim activity that you're going to get with a larger city, I'm not sure the other members would appreciate it. So I think that's a lot of it. Now, I honestly, I haven't had a city over 10,000 come to me. So we would probably independently evaluate it. If we thought it was a good risk, we'd take that to the board and let them make a decision. But, the target range is sort of like around 1,000 up to around 10,000.
So the claims don't trend with population? I mean, they don't stay in check? I'm just asking.
In terms of premium and,
Yeah, number of claims stay in proportion with population? Higher risk is what you're saying with more.
yeah, I mean, I think it just depends. So, I don't want to impugn some, specific municipality cases.
So there is a,
If we were,
if the town was too big,
yeah,
whatever we're not being there. So would you deny them?
we would decline to quote them.
Okay, because even on your board of trustees, those are all, except for the guy from McPherson,
Mhm.
those are all small county people.
Yeah, I mean, we have larger counties. Rebecca Nordyke was on our board from Geary County. That was a larger
Okay.
county. We have Butler County. There's 68,000 people. So we have larger counties. It's just,
Who got elected, I guess.
yeah. Like I said, Rebecca she served since 2000 and she just retired as clerk. So she got off and Dawn Harlow took her spot from Lincoln County. And actually, we're going to have I think another couple of retirements here soon. So that does rotate a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I get it, it's consensus of the council. Pursue it.
For it.
Work on whatever we need to do.
Yeah, we've sent quite a bit of information, only to add the fire department information, so I will reach out to him in the morning.
Oh, okay.
Because I
Did you,
did not include that.
in the questionnaire, you didn't? I think you did.
I noted the fire department, but did not include
I
all
think
of
you
our,
employee volunteer counts.
I did, on the
Okay.
volunteers, but not all of their equipment.
Oh, the
So,
equipment's not
and
there.
their building, they've got a very nice building
Got
on
it.
this block too, so.
Yep.
I need to make sure to include those, and I will email him first thing in the morning.
Okay, that's great.
Now, is our golf course, is that included in?
Oh, it should be if it's,
Yeah, with everything that we have now, the only thing I had not was the fire department, because we have that
I
separate
see.
in the VFIS.
yeah, I guess the only thing you don't have a generating plant, airport.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Do you
that
have
is
separate
included-
coverage for that?
That is included in the information I sent him. It's right now blanketed with EMC, buildings, hangars, liability is general
Okay.
liability.
I can so we can cover the property, no problem. We exclude the liability on airports. So if there's a slip and fall in the parking lot, we'll cover that. But your real exposure is like hangar keeper liability. No?
We don't have that.
You don't
as
have
well.
hangars?
We do have hangars,
But you
but
don't.
we have leases that each of them sign as they decide they want to rent or lease one of the
They
hangars.
indemnify you and carry their own
Correct.
insurance. Okay.
Yes.
So you're probably fine. I would probably keep an airport liability policy in place. And I'll have Bob visit with you about that.
And I can send him a copy of one of our leases too, just to have him
Perfect.
get that,
That's perfect.
if that's okay.
So that's probably the only thing we may need to carve out. And again, why? Because when there's standard industry coverage, that's really not that expensive. Airport, pollution liability, things that they have products in the market that are, that's where we just say, well, you can cover it there. So airports. Yeah, Bob can visit with you more about that.
Super.
Okay,
David, thank you for your time.
thank you. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
We'll be in contact with
Okay, do we have a date scheduled for the bids?
No, we haven't set a scheduled date yet, but I can talk to Bob and see if he wants to look at that second meeting in March.
Okay.
Where the first meeting in March may be a little tight for him. I'm not sure what his.
No, we
schedule is.
could probably do that. It's just, because I'd probably give yourselves an extra meeting, if you have to decide before 4/1.
Mhm.
But if we need to extend that, there've been some times, the
Do a
council
special
doesn't
meeting.
always love me for that, but we'll pull a special meeting together for that purpose.
If you have to. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
You bet.
we go on to we don't have any previous business. We've shoved it down to the bottom, our pay scale after our governing body reports. Anybody have any new business they want to bring to the council? Anyone? Dave?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Great. All right, we'll go into our committee reports. We have the golf course is first on the list. Is there any action items in this golf course?
Just a little bit.
Thanks.
The minutes are kind of broad. I talked to Trace on these. Really, the only action item is something that he probably could have taken care of, but wanted your input. And then, of course, public knowledge. I'm working on updating the clubhouse a little bit on the inside. The TV that is in the clubhouse right now is non-functioning and quite old. They, on the next page following the email that he sent, he has priced out 2 smart TVs that would allow individuals to stream from their phones if they would prefer to do so. And would like to purchase one of those if the council is in agreement.
Comment, who's the board?
Dave?
Dave? Do you know your board wants to buy a Hisense or a LG TV for $479 for the Hisense and $498 for the LG? 70-inch glass, 4Ks, smart TVs.
Yeah, I saw those items. I mean, I don't have a preference one brand wise. I guess unless somebody else does.
Yeah, that's with me. I've had several Hisense TVs and I still have them. I've had some of them 10 years. And they're not smart TVs, they're the old ones. They're a good TV.
Who do they sell for?
Who did they sell for?
Yeah, I mean, usually a brand like that will be a
You know,
Walmart or a
Yeah,
Sam's or,
they're in Walmarts. I see them in Walmarts. NIV, I've seen them in Best Buy.
Well, these are from Amazon, or one from Best Buy and one from Walmart, you're right. So the top one would be the one from
I mean,
Best
that's no
Buy
big deal.
and the other one from Walmart.
The Hisense is from Best Buy?
Looks like it.
But I've had, like I said, I have 3 of them. Kimmy, I think, sold them
We used to sell
to me back when the Alco days.
Yeah, and even up at the store up there, with the furniture store, we sold some Hisense.
Hisense, yeah. I have no qualms with
You
either
know,
one, really.
This thing isn't gonna see a ton of use either.
No, and typically this is an expense, I said that they have the authority to go ahead and buy, but this is something he,
Oh, okay.
And TVs are cheap now.
they want to
Yeah,
update
it's
that clubhouse a little bit as we're getting more members in there, which I personally think is a good idea. It needs a little shine.
I would give them let them get what they want. Yeah, whatever they
Yeah.
decide.
Consensus of the council?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Okay,
We will relay that information on.
all
And you
right.
look at the reviews, the LG has over 2,000 reviews and the Hisense has 112. Which means not too many people have them. I don't know.
So what about there's no water in the clubhouse?
Yeah, what's the deal
There
with
is
that?
now.
There is.
Oh, there, okay.
I was just gonna bring that up. Trace called me, they had a pump go bad again. They may have a problem out there. So their well is 22 feet deep. There's a 1-horse pump in that well. I sucked it dry in 10 minutes, trying to fill up the line. And you have to shut the breaker off. The well fills up pretty quick. That 1-horse pump sucks that water so fast, and it's just a 10-gallon a minute well pump
Is that down on number 3?
down number 1.
Number 1.
But all that does, and Trace said he can only run 2 hydrants off of that well, but I don't know if the perforated holes are plugged. The water comes in, But that pump is only pumping 10 I still haven't figured it out. I don't know if they need to have that cleaned. I don't know. But it's right on the creek and the water is, you can hear it come in and you can watch it come right up the pipe. But you turn that pump on
Yeah, it's not,
and it's going just like that.
it needs acidized.
Yep, needs acidized or chlorine and, but we got a pump put in it and we got water to the, everything
Who's that drilling company that we've used?
down
Down
drilling.
drilling.
Downing, yeah, that's it. Can we
I
have
don't-
them look at that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's only 22 feet deep. I can make a brush.
Get some muriatic acid, do it ourselves.
Well, if you suck it down, you pull the pump out in about 2 minutes. It's not that bad of a deal. But I think I don't know. It's right on the creek, but that's just a 10-gallon minute pump, and I still haven't figured it out. But it goes clear up to number 8, which is a long way. And it takes a while to fill that line up. So we had to sit there because it'd start cavitating. It would just,
Once it starts moving the water, can it maintain it?
no, it couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't know because he hasn't run the sprinklers yet.
Oh, okay.
But he said, John told him he could only run 2 because it will not do any more than that. But I told him to restrict the valve down and it might help him. If he turns the shut-off valve about halfway, that'll give him some recovery time. He's still gonna have pressure, but it'll give him a little better recovery time.
On the same paragraph above that, Trace was discussing the fairway mower. And it says in parentheses, pre-owned. Then we have the discussion that was a new demonstrator, not a used mower. Is that correct?
Right. I think it's in there working.
Okay, so it is the
Nobody,
the warranty clock was not ticking.
Right, I think that's what they said.
Okay.
Wasn't owned, but it was used.
Yeah, demonstrator.
Yeah.
Okay. That all for the golf course? Jamie's not here. We'll come back to him if he comes back. Jill, do you have anything to bring for the council?
I have a few things in your packet. I just did screenshots of the 2 dump trucks that sold. The one that was brought in from the golf course, as you can see, brought $1,000. And the other one brought $6,550.
Anything staying local or are they gone?
I have not looked to see where they are going to or gotten anything else on it. I haven't.
Are they both gone?
I'm sorry.
Are they both gone?
I don't think either one has been picked up yet. Cannot say.
The one that brought $1,000 had 78 bids.
So they weren't going up very far.
Yeah, we got 91.
Gee.
Starting bid was $10.
You would think
It'd
they
take a
brought
while to get up there.
$100,000
I did talk to the county or city boys. They said that truck that they bought, it was a good one.
That's
They also,
what they
if they
reported.
find 2 more of them, that'd be well worth the money.
Yeah.
Then, the homestead agreement, which is a 60-plus meal that they have in here during the week, Monday through Friday. A chamber meeting,
Yeah.
the discussion kind of came
Well,
up.
it started because of the Lenten services is
The Lent,
what
yeah.
started that discussion.
So I was glad that Brady had kind of brought it to our attention to discuss and get out there a little bit. Of course, we've had this agreement in place. I pulled the file for years and years. I think it started maybe when they redid the building. Originally, the agreement was to also have this space for senior use for so many hours before and after the meal, so they could have social time or meetings or such. The city, it looks like, cut that down, and the agreement now, of course, is to provide this location for them to meet. Through the years, we've kind of bent that a little bit, so we're trying to get back to the actual agreement because it had gotten down to where there was only maybe 2 or 3 people coming. So it worked really well to move them into the conference room and have that space because they prefer to have their own area. They are serving 16, 17, is that about right?
That's what
Now,
she told me.
On average, and they don't fit in the conference room. So we're kind of, in a sense, not really honoring our agreement when we rent out the hall on a Monday through Friday during the lunch hour. So the Linton, they had changed, a couple of years ago or a few years ago, and it had worked a little bit, but then last year, what did not go well, or the year before, I can't remember, because the numbers were just large, and at that time Judy Tucker was here, and it is a lot, because she's got to get everything out of the locked cabinets, because they have, most of that kitchen is actually theirs. So they have to get that stuff out, haul it into there, get everything, and then get it all set up. And there are some of them that just absolutely refuse to share. They've been offered to share the space in the Linton group the same way. We'd love to have them join us. They don't want to. They want their space and their time. So we tried to give people, other locations that maybe they can use. Because in their agreements, they do have, and I just grabbed a couple out of a file if you guys want to just pass them around and kind of look at some of the basics. It's something that we renew every year, telling them that they can have this space. They've been gracious and let us rent it out sometimes, and it's to the point now, they've got a large group. And I said that kind of goes, in fact, a few months ago, I had mentioned that I was going to try to work really hard to find a location, money, and ability to build a building for a senior center, city office, and transit, because I have to build a building for the vehicles, and eventually we'll have 4 or 5. And I've had some really good conversations. There's a lot of money out there that I didn't even fathom. So be on the lookout for some emails and stuff, because I'm working on it. I think it would be fantastic to have a true senior center. This would be able to take place in that building, allowing this to continue to still be rented. I think this whole building maybe could be repurposed as after-school care, teen center, something of that nature, keeping the gist of the majority of the building the way it is. So I have a lot of dreams, but that would rectify some of this. But as it is right now, we've got a large group that we
It's a big
have
room.
a standing agreement on that they get this room, their first dibs. So,
Okay.
I haven't talked to the chamber yet, so at this point, we're still honoring theirs, because I would like to help them, of course, try to find
How many
a good
people,
location.
chamber, how many?
20 to 25.
Mm.
Sometimes it gets up to 30, but rarely.
Well, sometimes you have guest speakers, you may get more than that, up 50 or 60.
Well, whenever SCCLA shows up, it's usually 35, 40.
Okay. Is that all you have?
For that.
Does anybody have anything from Jill?
I'm not
Brady?
done yet.
Oh, you're not done?
Thank you for explaining that.
Absolutely. I said it's one of those things that just kind of disappeared in a sense, because they had gotten down to so few that were coming. And
Well,
it's really kind of neat to see them, because they come in at, what would you say, 10:30-ish probably, to have coffee and visit, and they stay. They're still leaving when we come back from lunch, and they're eating lunch when we leave for lunch. And they just need this space. I think in some cases, this is their go-to.
There needs to be a senior citizens.
I'm on it.
There is a couple places they can go if they only knew probably, but Western Plains Village has a big area. And so does Smith Estates.
And
Has
so
a
does
really
the
nice area.
Catholic Church does too.
Yeah, the Catholic Church, but the Smith Estates, I didn't know they had all that up there until my mom moved up there. But they got a kitchen, they got a big room.
Yeah, quite a bit up there. Just quick, we did our K204 final field check. Everything went really well. We're looking at a November letting. So as soon as all the ducks are in row on all the powers that be, we'll get that together, expected in that time period for us, and then hopefully we'll get some good bids. Considering we're doing all of K204, we're hopeful And prices are still looking pretty good.
And the whole thing's gonna be done, right?
Absolutely.
Because
From
there's-
Main Street all the way out, the
But-
curves getting widened.
From north to south. Because somebody told me they're just doing the north side. I said, no, they're not.
They're confusing that with the sidewalk. The north
Okay.
sidewalk is getting replaced, north side only. Curb, gutter, roadway. We're adding drainage for that curve, also coming off of Armory Road, coming to the south,
Mhm.
because we get quite a bit of water comes in through there. Redesigning a little bit of that curve. It's a little tricky in there with that driveway.
Isn't the state giving up that highway?
Yeah, once this
Well,
project
that was a
is done.
special meeting we had, because once they granted us that first section, that got our teeth into it. They could have kicked us out of that program and not given us any money, because 36 and 281 would have been our mainstays.
But
They
will.
kept us in. Honestly, we kind of took advantage of it. But it is a roadway that they haven't wanted to maintain for over 20 years. Because I think 4 or 5 different times I've tried to get money for it. And that was the very first time.
Yeah.
So that's why we pushed hard and fast to get all of it, and they're giving us 3.6 million. We will be responsible, of course, for the design as always, and anything that falls over that. Which at this point, we're looking at about 700,000. Not a bad chunk of change for what we're getting done. That also includes the parking area that is to the south of what is currently the Mexican restaurant, and the parking area across the roadway there by the old co-op.
That's a big one.
That's a big one.
So there will no
That's
longer be a
mess.
It's all bad.
It's a
It will still be
total
referenced as
Yeah.
K204, but
But they
it
will
will
have
not be
nothing.
under their jurisdiction whatsoever. Once this project is completed and signed off on, it is 100% the city's, which means also maintaining, moving snow.
And I'm pretty sure by the time we need to have maintenance on it, I'll be out of office.
It'll
They'll be in the
quite-
ground.
Absolutely.
And then on the, which one am I on? Water project. All right, we got a lot of projects going on.
Yeah, we did.
The transmission line project, Ransom Financial, because it is a KDHE, they have to go through and do an audit of our system, our setup, everything of that nature. All looks good. They sent a very long document. You are welcome to, I can email it to you if you'd like, or you can come take a look. Basically, half of it, this last half is what was in the agreement. The first half is talking about our system, our rates, where we're at, the ability to repay, and they approve. So just some information there.
All right.
Now, I think I'm done.
Now you're done.
Now you're done. Anybody have anything for Jill? Don?
Nope.
Dave?
No.
No.
Tracy?
No, thank you for explaining that. There's a lot of questions because of that Linton
Absolutely.
dinners. Yeah.
I'm glad you that came up, because I wouldn't have even thought to talk about it.
Ariel, do you have anything to bring for the council?
I do not.
Anybody have anything for Ariel? Brady?
No.
Tracy?
Nope.
Dave?
Nope.
Chris? Don?
Nope.
Thank you. Tabitha, do you have anything to bring for the council?
If someone would make a motion, like at the end for like 5 minutes for an executive for, just attorney-client communication, I can catch you guys up on a couple things.
No, we'll do that at the end. Governing body reports. Chris, do you have anything?
I don't know.
Tracy?
Nope.
Don?
Nope.
Dave?
No.
Brady?
Nope.
Then we have myself, the pay scale thing. Does anybody come up with anything on that? I have a couple of scenarios I want to run some numbers on before I give them to you. So I'd like to, unless you guys have something to bring for the council.
No.
But I want to, what I've done, I've kind of done some numbers, and I'm going to see where it's going, how it's going to play out.
Never mind. I do have something I'd like to bring up. if we have a problem, which I think we're going to getting lifeguards and people to work at that pool, do you have any recommendations on how high we can go salary-wise in case that would make a difference?
Well, that would be all addressed at this, with this, what I'm going to propose.
Oh, okay,
That'll be addressed.
okay.
Then I think we can
Do you
go.
think that'll make a difference?
No, I don't, but I think it's worth a try. Because with that, the stuff Jill got, we're right in line, and some
I
are
know.
better than others.
I know.
Everybody's having the same issues, nobody wants to work.
Well, it's like any job. It don't
And
matter.
it's
if you're
something with spinning a whistle, they can't handle that or something.
Is it possible for a council person to visit with one of the consulting council to see about maybe some shared staff?
I thought about that, and I thought about the only way that would work is maybe one would have to be closed a day or two to staff the other, and then it would revolve back and forth. Let's hope we don't have to think about that.
Yeah. So it's consensus of the council, put table of pay scale till next meeting.
When we look at yours, yes,
Yeah, want to have some numbers for you.
right,
So we know what the impact's going to be.
right.
Tabitha would like to have a, you want to say 5 or 10?
I think, I think 5's fine.
Okay.
Had like a hiccup right in the middle of the word. Yeah,
All right.
I think 5 is plenty. All right.
I need a motion to have an executive session with our council for 5 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. So when everybody gets the thing off, I'll get the.
What happened, Jim? You responsible.
I don't smell.
I
You
do.
responsible.
Mm-hmm. I think it's Brady. I think he smells like smoked meat.